What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Ranger Central, and today we are going to be breaking down the Rangers versus Washington Capitals playoff series as we're going to do a little preview here. I went live, but I wanted to go more in depth with my thoughts in general on the series here as a whole and just give, kind of my thoughts individually of everything going into the series, what I think is going to favor the Rangers matchup-wise, what could potentially hurt them matchup-wise, and every single thing in between all that. So before we jump into everything, leave a like on the video if you do enjoy it, subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're Ranger fans, and turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live on the channel. But let's talk about a lot of different things that play in the factor with this series. I'm going to give my X factors as well that I think could either hurt the Rangers or help the Rangers. And again, we'll talk about everything. So let's just jump into it. So my first thing that I gotta say right off the rip, I love Artemi Panarin just going out there, setting the record straight that we have to win the cup. This is a no BS, no excuse type of year. You have to win the cup. And I'm glad that somebody's setting the bar high, because I love the regular season that they set the franchise record and everything, and it's great. But it doesn't mean anything if you don't proceed to win the Stanley Cup. It just does not. Anything below that is a failure. I'm not personally going to take a moral victory if they lose in the conference finals again. We've been there, done that. Like, this is it. Go in, and you got the matchup right off the rip. This is what you wanted, and this is the ideal matchup when you get the President's Trophy. Now, that's not to discredit what Washington could potentially do. I'm not trying to completely get on them and completely crap on them, because at the end of the day, it's an NHL team, and they are in the playoffs. Granted, they did make the playoffs by being less mediocre than the other mediocre teams, but regardless, they were mediocre and got into the playoffs. They're a playoff team at the end of the day, and it's anybody's game once the playoffs start. It's a clean slate, but I love that this team feels the pressure. They know deep down to their core that this is it, or heads might roll, especially if they lose this series. Heads are definitely going to roll if they don't take care of business here over Washington. So they got to do that for sure. And I think the biggest thing that we have to question going into the series, well, I shouldn't say that we have to, because I have faith this year that it will not be a problem. But the biggest thing that has obviously hurt the Rangers in years past is Artemi Panarin disappearing come playoff time. And I don't think it's going to be the case. You have him setting the bar high, which is great, because this team, like I said, needs the pressure. And him and the entire team quit on Gallant last year. I think that's going to be a big role in this, and the Rangers win the coaching matchup by a landslide too. Spencer Carberry, what does he know? Getting out in the first round with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Get out of here with the Spencer Carberry crap. And that's a guy that some Ranger fans wanted. I was never for it. This is the guy that I wanted, and these series are why you want a guy like Laviolette behind the bench, because it gives you such a huge advantage, especially when you have guys like Panarin who quit on the previous coach. You need a guy that commands respect in that room and that actually has a grasp on the room. And how many times has he pushed the right buttons this year? And I expect him to do it again with Panarin if things do go wrong, whether it's switching up the lines or switching up the matchup, because that's another big thing. Getting home ice gives you the matchup. Now that you have the ideal matchups in the majority of the games this series, that could change Panarin's game entirely. And the other thing is Lafreniere, who disappeared last postseason. I think he's going to have a big postseason too. And those two, him and Trocheck, I should say, in particular, really help Panarin out with his play. They all help each other. We know this. I don't think I'm explaining. I don't need to explain. I don't think I'm breaking news here. All of those guys work cohesively, and I think it's going to change the way we look at Panarin this postseason, and he's going to have a monster postseason. I want him to set the tone early. If I could have one thing on my wish list for this series, it is Panarin to open the scoring, because I think that it will give him such a big confidence booster after all, and it will just give us a feeling that he's playing with so much fire in him, and he's just going to go out there and light the world up, and that's what I want to see. The other question, of course, is just 5-on-5 as a whole. Could the first line continue the play that we've seen over the past few weeks? Yeah, I actually do think so. Like, maybe I'm blinded by the fact that the playoffs are starting and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a bit, but we've seen Mika Zibanejad step up in the playoffs before. And I know that last year was disappointing, but in 2021-22, he really turned it to another gear once it was later in the Pittsburgh series. He can't get off that slow of a start, but it did help this team. It helped them go to the conference finals. And then Chris Kreider, power play wise, I expect him to come up big come playoff time. I'm hoping here that he could get going. But this leads to my biggest X factor, and I think it's the third line, because Cooley, Wenberg, Kakko, they are probably going to get a lot of the matchups in terms of playing more of that defensive style role and neutralizing other teams' lines. The other thing that I want to see them do, I want to see them add some offense. I'm looking at Alex Wenberg especially, who he has had a bit of an issue, I feel like, finishing some of his scoring chances here with the Rangers. And he, again, I know he's not here to produce points and light the lamp entirely, but you want to see the points go in from him every now and then. Kakko, I'd also love to see him, step up offensively, especially because we thought he was in for a big season. Things a little underwhelming, especially due to the injury, but I'm hoping that he could get a little bit more of a scoring touch there, and that third line as a whole just hopefully could start scoring. Will Philip Hedl slot in there? Who knows? And then the fourth line too is going to be another thing that's interesting. Is Rempe going to start game one, or is it going to be Johnny Brodzinski? I don't think we have that knowledge yet. And then we get to the defense. My other X factor is really the Gustafsson-Trouba pair. How much are they going to hurt the Rangers? Because my biggest thing with the Rangers this series, you are better than Washington in every single aspect. There's not one part of the game this team is not better than Washington in. I get the Charlie Lindgren story. It's cool. Good for him. But Igor Shesterkin's just as hot going into the playoffs, if not hotter, and he's proven it before. How's Charlie Lindgren going to fare playing this much hockey? Because the only way I see Washington winning this series especially is if they bring it to 6 or 7 games. And that's a lot of games in a row for Charlie Lindgren, who just has not played that many games in a row in his career ever. So you have to question that on the Washington side, where Igor's been through the grind. He has the experience there, and this team in general. And I know that Washington does have guys that have been there, done that, and won the cup, but they also have guys that are a little bit newer to the game. And I think that if Tom Wilson was not on that Washington team, we'd be looking at it differently, because the only thing that worries me is their fourth line being better. I do like Washington's fourth line a bit, with Nick Dowd leading the charge there. I forgot who else was on it. I was looking at it before. But regardless, Abe Kubel, I think, is down there. But that fourth line might give the Rangers a little bit of a fit at times. I still think that it's not going to be a problem enough. Like, let's be honest, they're not going to chip in the offense. And if that's the biggest issue that you might come across in a series, then you're in very good shape. The only other thing getting in the Rangers' way is themselves, simply. But you have to trust the coach behind the bench to make the adjustments and figure everything out along the way if things do go wrong, which I do trust, because, listen, as much as I've been critical of this team, there's something to be said about the fact that they respond well. They do respond well to adversity, especially, and it's been a thing. It's been a theme all season long. And again, I don't know if this is just me getting excited for the playoffs and getting in that mood where I'm ready to go and just be a homer the whole way through and say this team's cup bound. But regardless of the fact, I really just think having that difference is going to be huge behind the bench, that is, with the adjustments that need to be made. And this team is only going to get in their own way. You're better than them at 5-on-5, even though the 5-on-5 play hasn't been as great as we want to. How about this for a confidence booster? If you dominate the 5-on-5 game against Washington, that could change our entire outlook. Dominate them. You could dominate them 5-on-5. I'm not going to say they're going to, but you're better than them 5-on-5. Better on the power play. Better on the penalty kill. Better in goals for per game. Better in goals against per game. You're better than this team in every aspect. You're better in goal, better on defense, better up front. There is not one thing Washington is better than the Rangers at. Even speed, and this team's not even the quickest team here, the Rangers head is. Washington's not quick at all. And that's something you could take advantage of, especially come playoff time, where speed kills. And we saw it last year with the Rangers going against the Devils. So I think that the Rangers win this in 5. That's the pick that I've been going with and that I will continue to go with. I'd love this to somehow be a sweep, though. Like, are you kidding me? Can you imagine if it's a sweep? And I would be going insane if it was. And if they steamroll Washington like that, I already have confidence right now, but that would bring it to a whole different level, especially if they just dominate them in every game, which it's probably not going to be every game, but even if it's, one or two of the games, if they dominate them, which I wouldn't put it past them, which we could also talk about head-to-head matchups this year when they played each other. I think it was 2-2 in total, the matchups, but there's really not a whole lot to take in stock with those matchups because in January, the Rangers played poor hockey, and even then, they won one of those games 2-1. The other game, they lost 3-2, so they kept it close at least. They did get shut out in that one December game 4-0, which wasn't good. But if they could play, I look at that December 27th game against Washington at the Garden where they won 5-1. If the Rangers could play the way they did that game, where they were so tight defensively too, and did not give Washington anything, and that was the biggest thing. Washington does not score a lot to begin with. Stick to the structure. Just play solid defensive hockey. The goals will come. Even though Charlie Lindgren's been a good goalie, the goals will come, especially because you're a faster team. You could score in transition off of the defense. Stick to that game, and this could be over in 4 to 5 games. So I think that the Rangers get it done. I really do. I would be very pissed off and just shocked if they didn't. And if they did not get it done, or if they don't get it done, I should say, it's simple that heads have to roll at that point because you cannot lose 2 first rounds in a row against teams that you're simply better than. It cannot happen. You are so much better than this team. It's just not even close. And I will stand by that even if the Rangers lose, because if the Rangers do lose, they're shooting themselves in the foot, because I refuse to see that, or refuse to believe that Washington's going to take control entirely here, and refuse to believe that the Rangers mess this up. Like, they have to get done, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Game 1, Sunday at 3 o'clock. I'm going to do a post-game after, but I do want to warn everyone that the post-game will be a little bit later on because I will be attending the game. Same with Game 2. All these post-games for the home games, I'm going to be at all the home games of the series, so post-games will be a little bit later. I do apologize in advance on that front that you guys are going to have to wait to see them, but please tune in live and watch them. We go crazy here come playoff time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on the series. What could give the Rangers trouble? What could win them the series? What could lose them the series? Overall, the thing that could lose them the series, in my opinion, is themselves. What could win them the series is them doing what they're supposed to do, which is just bend them over and knowing that they're better than them, especially if the MVP, potentially, well, he's not going to win MVP, but I'm saying our MVP in our heart, Artemi Panarin, shows up come playoff time. This should be quick work, and I hope that's quick work. And if not, going to be a long off season. Going to be an interesting one. But thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, post games will be late. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new. Tell me all your thoughts, and I will see you guys in the next one.